Just want to preface this episode 200. I put into a Kickstarter for a short film called Splinter from the writer Marc Bernardin. He's written a bunch of TV shows and such, and comic books and everything else. He mostly does a podcast with Kevin Smith called Fat Man Beyond. And the tier in which I put in for the Kickstarter got me a hour-long one-on-one Zoom meeting with him in which he would read up to 100 pages of something. So like a script or a book, short story, whatever. So I sent him my script for Marooned, which I wrote last year. Or was it this year? No, last year. 2021. I wrote it early 2021 in hopes of making it last year, which we ended up not doing. And as of right now, August 10th, 2022, I just had my Zoom meeting with Marc, and that's what you will be listening to. And I will see you next time. Episode 201. Hello. Hold on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go. Everything.
Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, man. It's been a pretty decent day, but I'm coming to the end of it. This is home plate for me.
Gotcha.
I get to tap out.
How
are you?
Great. Little nervous.
You look familiar. Did we do another Zoom before?
No, this is the first one.
Really?
First time meeting.
Well, then it's good to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too.
Where are you in the world?
I am in Reno, Nevada.
And what do you do for fun and money in Reno, Nevada?
Money. I fill orders at the JCPenney warehouse. So that's what my day job is. For fun, I make movies. I write and I make movies. I'm a filmmaker. I try to do what I do when I'm not working.
I know how that goes. How many films have you been able to put together?
I say 5, but I've been doing it since high school. But I want to say 5 when we really buckled down and started doing features.
That's awesome. And who gets to be in your movies? Like buddies or
friends, family, co-workers, local artists. Lately, it's been local artists. Like just reaching out to people who know people. It's a growing community here in Reno.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And so, what are your hopes and dreams for Marooned?
Well, it's funny because when I originally sent it to you, that was the one that I kind of wrote, and I thought we were going to make that movie this year. I actually wrote something else, and that's what we made. We just finished making something. Spent the last 5 months, Friday, Saturday, every Friday, Saturday, last 5 months, we kind of buckled down and made this other movie. But my hopes and dreams for Marooned was kind of came from the idea from something else we did, where we had a shack that we built in someone's backyard, and we're like, it's not working, let's put it in the garage. And we were able to control the lighting and everything in there. So my buddy was like, let's do that again with another movie. So I wrote this one where we would build the ship in his garage.
That's smart.
So that we can control everything. Yeah.
And then where was going to be the alien planet? Was that, an outdoor location, a park or something nearby?
Just the forest. We got a lot of forests here in Nevada, and California's 30 minutes away. We spent a lot of time in that forest on the one we just shot, and I kind of wrote Marooned on like a sun-bathed planet so that we wouldn't have to deal with lighting at night out in the forest.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're breaking up on me a little bit, chunks.
Yeah, I don't. It's always happens, but it catches up, and then I get what you're saying. I hope that it does the same on your end.
Yeah, for the most part. For the
Okay,
most
okay, good. I don't have the best internet
part.
connection.
I guess the right. That's okay. We'll muddle through. This was a movie that you yourself was going to make.
Hmm.
It does change a little bit of some of the thoughts that I had based on reading it, given that, a screenplay is only as useful as a tool of communication, so you get the vision of the writer into as many people's heads as you can, right? Like if I'm writing an episode of TV, I have to be aware of the fact that there's another 200 people after me who are going to be reading the script, and based on the script, they're going to go do their jobs, right?
Right.
So like, I have to be able to tell, the costume designer what the costumes are going to look like. I have to tell casting kind of who we're going to get for this, what we'd like for this. I got to go tell production designer, like, what does this stuff all look like? How does this stuff all, go together, so that they then have the tools that they need to go do their job. But if you're already making it yourself and you already know who those people are, and it becomes a much smaller cluster of people you need to have be on the same page as you are.
Right, and I kind of write two different ways, right? When I'm writing a script, it's generally like I'm also directing it, producing it. So a lot of the language that I write in my scripts, a lot of the language I write in my scripts is more like a thought in my head of the picture that I see that shot being. I do write differently when I plan on just like for somebody else. If somebody else wants me to write a script for them, I do adjust.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I haven't read a ton of scripts by people who are writing for themselves to direct. Um, Other than like I've read James Cameron scripts for Terminator and Alien
Sure.
because I'm that fucking nerd. Um, and so like very early on in my wanting to do this for a living, like those were some of the scripts that I tracked down. It was like, I love these movies. I want to see how you make these movies.
Right.
Um, but even still, like that was the exercise of that is I know exactly what I want to do, but now I have to make all these other people here know what I want to do too. Um, so I think my first thoughts were in that zone was especially as somebody who's reading it cold, um, I I didn't have a good picture in my head of what this shuttlecraft looked like, of who these characters were. I didn't know if they were all men, if there's a woman, if they're tall, short, black, white. Like I don't know if this is a shiny shuttlecraft or if it's a Millennium Falcon shuttlecraft. Is it a piece of shit or is it brandy new off the line?
Right.
All of those things that sort of make, especially at the beginning, okay, I understand what reality I'm living in here, right? Like I understand, um, what I'm seeing on the screen,
Hmm.
which I think is really important. The more people you want to show a thing to your point, like the clearer you want to be about your own vision, and even if it's a smaller internal production, at least so that the actors reading it can know, oh, all right, so I'm this guy, I'm that, you know what I mean? Like it's painting a better picture of what is in your head.
Hmm. And
Um,
I left the characters, kind of ambiguous, because it didn't matter to me if they're man or woman. An audition process, whoever fit the role, I was more than willing to cast whatever seemed to fit best.
mhm. Right. Okay. I mean, that's totally fine.
And adjust
Um,
as needed, of course.
right. Um, and I think that similarly, I guess there is some shorthand that you're using as a director, which
Yes,
is
yes.
like, you know, though we can't see it yet, the ship is barely hanging off a cliff. And it's like, well, if I can't see it, don't tell me that it's doing this until I can see it.
Right.
You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Okay. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Um, and I'm wondering about the decision not to give anybody a real name
Hmm.
until much later in the piece because I'm not sure that reveal counts or does exactly what you want it to do. And I do think that names are just a very small way of telling you who a person is,
Hmm.
right? And part of my difficulties with the read was I didn't really know who these characters were other than what their jobs were.
Hmm.
I didn't know what made anybody tick. I didn't know what any of them wanted beyond not to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking back to the beginning of Pitch Black.
Yep.
You've seen
Yep.
Pitch Black.
Yep.
And it opens very similarly. You're opening on a spacecraft that's on some long haul mission that undergoes some crazy ass space shit, and then they crash.
Yep.
But even before they crash, like, you kind of know the relationship between everybody on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
You know the people that are cargo. You know that there's a incredibly dangerous prisoner. You know that you've got a pilot who's trying to prove herself, and a cop who doesn't give a shit, who may be tweaking on drugs. Like, you have the beginnings of all of those stories already in motion,
Mm-hmm.
all of which get amplified by the crash.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it's, how's this addict going to get his drugs? What the fuck happened to Riddick? Here are all these pilgrims who are trying to get to New Mecca, who are now apparently just chum for the waters for the serial killer.
Right.
Like, all of these things then get to function, help you build tension, help you ratchet stuff up. But until you have that understanding of who these people are and what they want, it's hard to get that kind of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm harping on what their names are, but again, like, names do tell us something. Junior, are you the third? Like, are you, does your name betray some, it becomes about specificity.
Mm-hmm.
What is this person's specific story that makes them not just like a character out of a card catalog? Like, what makes them, like, where did he grow up? What was his life's journey? What turned him to a life of crime? Like, all of that stuff, I believe, is stuff that
Mm-hmm.
sitting down to write something like this, it's hard to do without having that sort of knowledge.
Yeah.
But I think putting it on the page gets to be, I mean, a couple of, like, logic you understand. Like, so they're coming in too heavy and they got to jettison the cargo. So what was the cargo? Did it matter what the cargo was? Like, is it important cargo? Was it, and when you're jettisoning the cargo, it also seems to compartments in the ship. So suddenly, like, the med kits are gone and the food is gone, which doesn't feel like a thing you jettison with a button. Or then it feels like that would be the last thing you get rid of. Like, maybe there's a stage of deciding, like, all right, we're still not light enough. We still have to go. So, well, all right, we got to dump some more shit. What do we dump now? Well, we have, 14 metric liters of water. Can we make do with half of that? We make do with none of that.
Right.
Just fucking, you know what I mean? Like, make that part of the escalating drama of we're going down. And then, like, the captain is making shitty decisions. And everybody's like, well, what the fuck? Like, you're supposed to be the captain. You're supposed to know your shit. Like, why are you doing dumb stuff that's going to make us dead? Like, well, if we die up here, it doesn't matter. Like, stuff that you have in there, it's just getting there and helping that reveal character as part of that process.
Well, I mean, and then, of course, at the end, we find out that they're all just escaped convicts and don't necessarily have the actual experience. They just kind of fit into a roles. You got the bossy guy that fits the captain's role, and they're just kind of winging it and figuring it out on their own.
Right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, but there's also a version of that where the captain was a pilot, like, who did some bad shit and ended up in prison. So, like, yeah, all right, well, I guess we trust you because none of us know how to fly a shuttlecraft, and so you get to be the captain. And
right.
Like, you got to call me captain. It's like, well, I got to call you fucking captain because I am the captain. This is what I do. And it's like, well, I thought what you did was crime. It's like, yes, but I fly to the crimes, and then I fly away from the crimes. Like,
yes. Absolutely.
So, like, it's so much of the reasons why we engage, especially in low-budget science fiction and low-budget genre, is because the characters are fucking awesome.
Yes. Yes.
The characters are great. There's an actor who's giving breath to those characters and bringing it to life. But, like, Jack Burton, if you don't have Jack Burton in the middle of Big Trouble in Little China, then that's just like this kind of average kung fu movie.
Yeah.
It's the levels of mania you get from Kurt Russell, the levels of, like, incompetence you get, even though like he is clearly the worst person in a fight, except somehow manages to survive a cataclysm between two worlds. And like, why? Like all those are questions that our audience wants to roll with, and they want to be invested. They want to fall in love with these guys, even if they're assholes.
Right.
Um, so I think the more meat you can put on the bones of who these guys are and what they want, independent of the specific trauma that they're in, the more we can sort of love them.
Hmm.
And because and I think right now there's a lot of antagonism. There's a lot of like just everybody fucking hating each other, which it's great when you're under pressure, but I think after a while you do want to sort of ease back on that throttle
Hmm.
and then find out what the relationships are between these people that are not based on their trauma and their current crisis. Like, were they all part of a gang? Were they all separate inmates who all just decided to bond together and break out? Like, did two guys know each other early, but then these other two guys are strangers? Like I think it becomes, if it's just going to be this sort of chamber drama about
Hmm.
these people trapped in this ship, like the ways they connect to each other are the things that are going to make that that starts to bring to the surface the drama between them.
Okay.
Because drama's conflict,
Hmm.
and you have to have the specificity of that conflict. They can't just hate each other for hating each other. There have
Sure.
to be reasons why,
Okay.
and you have
Okay.
to be able to like that's part of the mystery, right? Like these guys are all assholes. They all don't like each other. Why don't they like each other? It's like, oh well, then we'll get to that.
Hmm.
I think that let me see. Let me check my notes here. Um, and I think it's front loading as much of that stuff as you can,
Okay.
because I think you get, and by that stuff I just mean who are these people, and what do they want? Because you get like 13, 14, 15 pages in, and you don't know very much at all about them at the very least. You know that they're on a show that crashed, but you don't know anything about and some of it is mystery, and I get it. You want to keep the idea that they were all prisoners as part of your sort of overall mystery arc.
Hmm.
But even before then, it's just who are these people,
Hmm.
you know? And if the overriding urge is to figure out how to solve their situation, then more problem solving, more like let's engage in that main plot faster.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, and some of these notes again are based on the reading it as a person who doesn't understand that you're just shooting it yourself.
Sure.
But like I get to be like, what does the soldier see when he sees the alien world? Because you just described like it's got deserts and trees, and I'm like, I don't know, like, is it an alien world or is it a park you can find in Nevada and California?
Right.
That you'll do some color adjustments so that the skies are orange and the
Hmm.
leaves are green
Throw
or
a
red
couple
or
of suns
whatever.
up there.
Yeah, but it's just like how alien is alien? Like what does he see? Like
Hmm.
sell me a bit more on the oh shit, we're on a completely other planet.
Gotcha.
Um, there's stuff like I think it's on page 17 that they say like we're not taking off. This ship is immobile, and then like well we can rotate the ship. I was like wait a minute. Like I thought the ship was immobile. And if they fired up the engines, they tumble into this chasm, but then they can twist the ship. So it becomes like he's trying to convey the somehow both of these things are true. Like
Mm.
we can't take off, but we still have maneuvering thrusters, or something to that effect. We can't break the ship's too heavy for that, but we can pivot the ship on the edge, or something to that effect,
Okay, a little bit more detail there for sure.
right? Because that's what's happening on. I can turn the ship. Yeah. Um, I think the flashbacks rooted generally in point of view. So like we kind of need to know which character is having which flash. Into a flashback that doesn't seem motivated by anything, and is then occasionally not rooted in the character. We kind of like, what's the point of view? Like, is this the captain's flashback? Is it the soldier's flashback? Um, and then you have to, and again, it's a movie. but describing what those flashbacks are. I think there's a line early on. It's like in his head we get glimpses of his flashback and what he risked to be where he is now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I don't know what that is. It's hard to know what that is as a reader, what those flashbacks are. Even if we're just seeing glimpses, like that's one of those like we see glimpses of he was robbing a bank, getaway car, police chase. Even if you don't want to, even if you don't want to say that he was a prisoner, you can say like, oh, like maybe he's a cop.
Okay.
Like you can hide the specificity of those things, but at least just giving me an idea of what I'm seeing on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Let me see. Okay, yeah. So you get about 50, 60 pages into the script, and there are some mysteries, right? There are, who is Blondie? What is the ancient evil that we hear on the message? Um, but it seems as if none of the characters are sort of actively investigating those mysteries, right? Like they hear the thing about ancient evil, and then they kind of just go about their business, and they know that there's this strange guy in a pod that they found. But it's like they wake him up and they just welcome him into the crew, and there's never any. You kind of want the feeling of like even an Alien when John Hurt gets hit by the face hugger, and then they bring him back onto the ship, and they start running all these fucking medical scans. And do we know what's what? Should we let him out? Should we break quarantine? Like all of the things, the sort of ritual of encountering a alien body out there in the world, and how they would eventually get to some version of, well, he looks human, so let's wake him up
Right.
and let's make him part of the crew. It's like the suspicion of who he is feels like a thing that you can play for a little bit longer.
Okay. Amp that up a little bit more.
Yeah, like, who is this? Why is he here? How did he get in this pod? What does the pod tell us about him? Like, they discover that there's the plasma in the pod that they want to get into their ship as fuel, but then does the pod say anything else?
Mm-hmm.
Does the pod have a warning on it that they can't read?
Mm-hmm.
Like which one of us, and that's when the fact that these are all people who should not be on this shuttlecraft, bumping up against the ends of their skill sets, where it's like, man, come on, can't you decipher this? Like, no, I'm not a linguist. I'm not an actual doctor.
Right.
I'm
Right.
a fucking medic. I didn't go to school. Never studied Latin.
Yes.
Like, all of the things that you think I should know, I don't know. Um, so it's keeping that suspicion alive. It's keeping that level and it's unsettling the audience by even how quickly they push past what seem to be very logical considerations about a dude they find in a pod on an alien planet. And I think that it's trying to find a way to add some propulsion to the story, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
trying to, figure out ways to make it move and have tension. And, especially given that you're somewhat static in what you can shoot. Like we can shoot some exteriors in these parks and we can shoot interior in the shuttlecraft. And that's kind of our two locations.
Yep.
And so finding ways to accelerate the story between these characters and finding ways to have like alliances that'll fray, that'll shift. Have you ever seen the Alfred Hitchcock movie Lifeboat?
Yes, I just watched it recently, in fact.
It's very similar to this, right? In that we just got a bunch of people on a fucking boat
Right.
and be in this singular location for 85 minutes. And so how do we begin to reveal information about these characters? How do we begin to reveal suspicion about these characters? Who should be here, who shouldn't be here? And pulling somebody out of the water. Like you've got some of those beats. You've got like Duffy waking up. You've got Blondie suddenly coming into this. But how the introduction of these characters destabilizes what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where your story gets its motion, gets its energy. Which is these guys kind of go up at the edge of their knowledge and the edge of their skills. They think everything is, all right, we got a plan. There's a rescue ship coming. Can we wait for the rescue ship? Well, no, because, and maybe that's part of the dropping if not dropping that they're escaped convicts or criminals that early, but why can't they wait for the rescue ship gets to be a mission, gets to be a question the audience asks.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to show up, let's establish it's coming. Like they send up a beacon, like when do we expect them to show up? It's like, well, the beacon, it'll go up this high, broadcast this far, and then, given that we're on the fringes of the outer rim, like, I don't know, we might get rescued in 3 days. It could be 3 days to a week. So
Mhm.
then we got to be off this rock in 2 days. Otherwise, we go right back where we came from. And the audience doesn't know what that is yet, doesn't know what that means. Or, like, I can't go back. None of us can go back. It's like, oh, are they deserters from the army? Are they on the lam for tax evasion? Like,
Right.
whatever it is, you still get to play that there's a clock on what's happening with them down there, and they got to beat this clock. And for the clock to be rescued is doubly interesting
Mm-hmm.
because you think that's what they want.
Right.
Like, oh man,
Right.
I want to be rescued. It's like, no, we got to be out of here before the fucking space marshals show up.
Right.
That's a great twist. That's a great complication that you don't see coming. And so the more you can sort of add these complications to things, the more you can, it's a bit like the abyss, where it's like we're at the bottom of the fucking ocean, and we don't, like, okay, damn it, we got to get out of here, and suddenly the leak's coming, and got to pass this leak, and compartment lights into this compartment because we don't have any oxygen elsewhere. Like, all of the problem solving of staying alive, like this, I think is interesting, and it just gives you more ways to just apply pressure.
Mm-hmm.
This pressure, I think, is going to, story pressure, plot pressure, character pressure, until people start to crack. Crazy and go off the reservation. You want the junkie who, wants a hit and can't get one. Like, what happens to this guy who's looking for a drink or looking for a score, and there's nothing to lose? Sorry.
Right. Right.
And the mention is that the audience will go with you down the road that you pave for them, right? And they will expect surprises along the way, but what they won't absorb is when suddenly the road itself changes, and so for what starts as a pretty science-based, quote-unquote reality-based story, right? Guys in a spaceship landed on a planet, we got to get more fuel. The problems that they have are mundane and average, and the solutions are mundane and average. And then you introduce a vampire,
Mm-hmm.
which then suddenly becomes supernatural in a way that I didn't know the story was going to be supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that you can't do that, except that it feels like a little bit of groundwork needs to be laid at the top so that it doesn't come as a whole, like, oh shit, I'm in a zombie movie now?
Sure.
I didn't know we were doing that. I think there's ways to tweak it if you want. There's ways to make it like, well, he's not a space vampire. He's an alien race that just happens to subsist on, he's a hunter. He's like the predator. Like, I live by eating other species. And I ate everything else that was on this fucking planet.
Okay.
And they finally imprisoned me in this cell, and then you opened it up. And so I'm sorry, I'm just going to eat everybody else that's here too. So it's less, and maybe it's even just the word vampire that becomes like, oh,
right.
Well, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, suddenly I'm conjuring, Count Chocula.
Well,
I should be conjuring alien.
I mean, that character's based on a character that's in another movie that I made, and I just kind of pulled him from something else, and then, like, way in the future, they kind of find this DNA and bring him back. I mean, you read it. So it's like, yeah, he is a vampire, but, like, to broaden it so that no one who has ever seen that movie absolutely remove the vampire word out of it and make it more broad, like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's playing fair with the world that you built so that it doesn't seem like suddenly we're changing the world.
Right.
It's as if suddenly at the end of, Star Wars, Darth Vader pops fangs. You're like, wait a minute, I thought this was about laser swords and the Force. And, like, even though there's magic in that world, space vampire still feels like it's a little bit too far because it just doesn't seem like it fits with the other things that we've gotten so far.
So drop the vampire, maybe monster.
Yeah.
Alien.
Because I totally think that, like, we're in space. We're on a planet that we don't understand.
Right.
We found an alien who's nasty as shit. Totally.
Right.
It was just, maybe it's, you're right. Maybe it's just the word vampire. I was like, okay. All right. I didn't see that coming, not in the way I wanted to see it coming.
Right, right, right. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? But I think that like conceptually it's tight. You know, it's like you've got your locations and you explore them, and you've got your characters who I do think if you add some more meat to their bones, that gets to be like really fun and seeing who's who. And I do think the surprise of what their real names are isn't quite worth the squeeze of not giving me their real names along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because after a while you want to be calling somebody just not Captain. Or Captain's the one who leaves his name Captain because he won't tell you what his name is.
Right.
But everybody else is like, oh, I'm Phil, and I'm Chip, and I'm, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I think there's, because the revelation of it isn't that big of a revelation because the names don't mean anything.
Right. It's not going to change anything.
Right. Um, but yeah, like I dug that they were convicts. I mean, a little bit more specificity as to, you know, what they did to earn their way into jail, what they had to do to break out, how Duffy is a part of that escape. Just clarifying all of that stuff, especially if it's things you're going to show. But there's also a version of that where it's just stories people tell.
Mm-hmm.
If actually like trying to shoot a prison escape on a spacecraft and all that shit gets to be too much. It's Attack on Precinct 13. It's all of those movies that are like this big and we don't have a ton of money and we don't have a ton of locations, but how do we still get across all of these relationships,
Right.
Um, I think a lot about, and I think about it often, Attack the Block, and how effectively they tell you the story of these kids, and how they tell you about like who Moses is, who John Boyega's character is,
Mm-hmm.
and he says almost nothing, like he's super John Wayne throughout that entire movie, but you get the picture, you get the relationship, you get how these kids are all connected to each other. You get the hothead, you get the student, you get the fucking I just want to beat things with a shovel, and then you get Moses who he just wants a family.
Right.
Like he just wants to protect his friends because he has no family. I think all of that stuff and very condensed and very claustrophobic. Um, I think that's where your dinner is going to be. I think that's where this is going to breathe once you figure out, and once you dramatize all of these connections or lack thereof
Mm-hmm.
among these characters. Does that stuff help at all?
No, absolutely, absolutely does. And I know there's plenty of room there, because I wrote it pretty quick. I was, I don't know, when I'm more motivated, I write a little bit faster, and I had some time to write it, and like I just, I need to get it out because I could always go back and fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I love those notes, absolutely.
Yeah, first and second drafts are always, some people call it the puke draft, but I don't quite believe in that because that feels like it's somewhat denigrating. We wrote a fucking thing. We did the work. It's not puke. Like I told a story.
Right.
But, the work is always in the rewriting and kind of going deeper and finding all of that sort of character meat because, and it took me a while to come to it, as I think it takes everybody who's doing it sort of on a doing it for fun level of realizing that it's all about character. It's always
Right. I'm big on character.
like that. It's I want to watch for 5 years. Movie. You know. So yeah, it's about how I can engineer it so that people want to buy these action figures when we're done. You know. So they want posters of these fucking. How deep can we go with them?
Right.
Yeah. Man. So that's my spiel. Those are my notes. What else can I tell you? You have another 28 minutes on your, someone moderately priced call girl. It's like, hey man, this is yours. You can do whatever you want with it.
Honestly, I would love to just like pick your brain about anything that you would be able to help out with. I just, I've been making these movies for a long time, and we've been doing our own thing, and I'm still working, my 9-to-5 job, and it kind of sucks, and I feel kind of stuck, and I don't know, like, we get a little bit better with each one, right? We'll buy better equipment, and we'll find more thirsty actors that want to do stuff, which was great on this last one. Like I said, we spent 5 months making it, and I've never spent 5 months making a movie. And we got a lot of interest from people, and everyone's very motivated. But it's just like, what more can I do from my position where I'm at?
Like it's rough because it always feels as if there's some moat or some barrier between you and the thing that you want, and even the closer you get to the moat, the further away it feels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're already doing the thing and people do, which is make a thing. Like, write it, shoot it, post it, put it up online, try and spread the word about it, try and enter some festivals,
Yeah.
try and get some heat, and then try to capitalize that heat into something else, right? For me, it was comics was my way in. It was my like making a thing and putting it out into the world and then hoping that somebody would see that and then recognize, and it worked for me. But my end goal was I wanted to write television.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily want to make movies, although the reason why we're talking is that I eventually wanted to make a movie.
Right.
The goal was slightly different in that, like, yeah, I want to be on staff of a TV show, and then I want to learn how to do that, and then hopefully at some point somebody will give me my own TV show, and then that's the dream. And so that path is different than your path is, because it seems as if your path is you want to make movies.
Yeah.
And so, as Kevin will tell you, the best way to make movies is to make movies.
Right. Just do it.
And just do it. And so the hope is that with every movie you make, you get better at doing it. And that the movies that you make are movies that only you could make.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's the Clerk example. Like, nobody else but Kevin was making a movie called Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was writing movies that sounded like that at the time, which was based entirely upon his life, because that's how he and his friends talk. It was a representative of who he was as an artist, and what meant something to him as an artist. And so, for you, it's totally fine if the thing that you love is genre, and the way you want to tell stories, and you want this to be the medium in which you get to tell the story that only you can tell. But it's figuring out what is that story. You know what I mean? Like, and not that everybody needs to have the great American novel in them, but when you look at those people who did sort of cross that barrier, who crossed the Rubicon into the promised land, it was because they told the story that only they could tell. Boys in the Hood is the story that John Singleton, and maybe the only real story that John Singleton had to tell.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened to be his first one. Clerks and Mallrats and Chasing Amy and Dogma were probably the stories that Kevin had to tell. The height of his I got some shit to say, and here's the method in which I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other stuff has been fun, and Clerks 3, does sort of bounce back up to that swing, and that his life has changed dramatically since Clerks 1.
Right.
And so now who is he now as a middle-aged man who survived a heart attack? Who continues to return back to the sort of wellspring from which he was birthed. It is a very personal movie. And I think most of his movies are personal, but I think the personal is the thing that ultimately is what's going to get you noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the personal story that you can tell within genre that means something to you? Because if you can crack that, and if you can distill that, and if you can reveal the you that you are using horror and science fiction as a lens, then it gets to be something special. Then it doesn't matter the tools with which you had to realize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
And so when you look at like those early movies of genre filmmakers, look at early Tim Burton. He's always talking about like growing up an outsider in the middle of suburbia and what it feels like to be an outsider. You look at John Carpenter, it was very much about like, here are the things that scared me as a child. And I want to realize that on a much bigger scale. Like, I mean, fucking George Lucas. Like, I grew up in a shitty farm town in the middle of nowhere, and I always thought that I was meant for something more.
Right,
But no
right,
one
right.
ever gave me that license to chase after it, and also hot rods because I love fucking engines. It was always these very personal stories that just happened to be. I mean, E.T. is like, my parents are breaking up, and I don't have any
Mm.
friends, and here comes a friend from outer space is the only person I can talk to when like my mom is living her life trying to be a single mom, and my brothers are older than I am, and I'm got a baby sister who's just hanging on my fucking ankles.
You just
And
gave me
here's
chills with the ET analogy there.
yeah, so it's what's that story? That's your story. That this will be the tool that you use to tell it. You know, because I think you're like having fun because fucking making movies is fun.
Yeah.
Here I'm with my homies and we just get off and then like every weekend we get to go play with cameras and it's
Yes.
super cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's figuring that out. It's figuring that out. And it could take a bolt of fucking lightning. Here's the thing that I want to do. But I always believe in my gut that be the game changer
Uh-huh.
for everybody. If you're a storyteller, it's the one. That's the one.
Right.
So yeah, no pressure. Just
No, I get it. I get it. Absolutely. It's just,
sorry.
I was able to go to a couple film festivals in Vegas. Uh, but like I got kind of shafted with like a shitty like screening time, and there was like I was hoping like that'd be a nice kind of networking event, but then there was like nobody around. I got like a Monday night at like 10 p.m.
Yeah,
and it was like deserted other than the people on the casino floor that were just gambling. But it was cool getting to see my movies on the big screen like that.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Um, but yeah, that's the one bit of advice I think I can offer.
It's great. I love it. I mean, I always love listening to you, like on Fat Man, and everything. Like you're revelatory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What else can I tell you, man? What else? I can tell you how Splinter is going.
Oh yeah, when are we gonna get to see it?
Um, it is looking like early to mid September. We have all the VFX in house. We have all of the score is done. I'm just waiting for the final delivery from the composer. The cut is locked with the VFX incorporated. So we have to do a final sound mix, and then we have to do the color timing for the image. Both of which sound like they can't be done for another 2.5 weeks. Like, seems like everybody's going on vacation. They're like their August vacation before kids go back to school or
Right.
whatever. And
Absolutely.
so it seems like the week of the 28th is the first we can get back at it and start putting these finishing touches on. And then once it is done, like I'm not gonna like keep it secret, keep it safe, keep it close to the vest. Like and festival submission is absolutely the next phase of this. Um, and it's just figuring and it's making sure that the festivals we submit to will allow for us to share this with our backers because that feels like it's more of an investor, um, uh, an investor share than a public exhibition.
Hmm.
Because a lot of these, festivals are shitty about accepting movies that have been screened in public before.
Right. Yeah. No, I've seen that a lot. Everyone
Yeah,
wants to be the first.
everyone wants to be the first. So like as we're coming out of the gate, looking at stuff like Sundance and Toronto and Telluride and whatever, like, all right, well, who the fuck knows? But we know it'll be a no if we put this in a movie theater for a day.
Right.
Uh, but I think we can slip links to people who actively contributed to its production.
What's the
It's a big.
runtime?
Without credits, it's 1438.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the script came in at like 18 pages, and then as we were cutting it, there was some stuff that went faster in the edit and even in the production of it. And then once we got to post, we're like, do we need this? Do we need this? Like, Can we tell the story without it? If we can't tell it without it, we probably don't need it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and Kevin was very merciless in giving me advice.
Oh, really?
It was like, yeah, man, it's a fine scene, but you don't need this information that's in this scene. Uh, yeah, I guess you're fucking right. You don't need it. He's like, a short can always be shorter. Hey, man. As he's trying to get his feature down to like 89 minutes. It's like, I can get another minute out of this. I know I can. Without frame fucking it, I know I can pull something out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, it's coming together. It's coming together really nicely. Um, it'll be the last stage of the I don't know what this is yet is the color time, right? Like, which is a magic that I don't understand yet, but I know my DP and the colorist we have on board, which is oh yeah, no. We're gonna excavate every last fucking pixel out of this and make it something beautiful.
Right, we're working on that right now with the one we just shot. We're editing everything now and dealing with the coloring. My DP also, he does all the kind of fine tuning. I do the broad strokes editing to get what I want my story to be, and then he'll come in and he'll make it seamless, cross cut whatever needs to be cross cut, and it's like cool. You're better at that than it's always nice to have a second set of eyes because it can get draining sometimes just sitting here and editing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was my experience shooting the short. Was I was very candid and very open about the fact that I know what I don't know. And we were lucky enough to be able to hire and pay department heads who 100% knew how to do their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it came down to it, it's like, hey, man, if you're happy with this frame, I'm the one thing that I can protect is the story
Right.
and the emotional content. Like, that's what I know more than anybody else knows. But like, if you're happy with this frame, if that makeup looks good to you, if you're good with that light being there, then like, fuck it, let's roll it and see what it feels like. Just trusting the other people to do their jobs and that they would do it well, and they did. So far, man, like everybody knocked it out of the park.
I can't wait to see it. This has been an exciting process.
Yeah, I still don't know if I want to do it again though.
Really.
I don't know. Like I had fun doing it. I did, but it's an alien experience to me because I've lived so much of my life on the page. And then being able to, just hand it off to somebody else and then trust that it'll be good, as opposed to being responsible for all of it.
Uh-huh.
But then there's always like the minute we wrap this short, I was like, I got an idea for another.
Yes.
Sure. Like,
Absolutely.
It's like probably is, but
How long were your
let's finish this one before we have ideas for other ones.
How long were your days? Like how many hours did you go on a day shoot?
We shot for Thursday, Friday, 4 days. Our call time 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Probably shooting by 9:30 or 10, and then we were tail lights by 8 p.m. every day, except for our last day, in which everybody was done by 6.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
Day was our fucking carnage day. Our last day, and because the crew just fucking moved. Like we were always so we had control over everything, and we're on stages, and so we didn't have to. There was some construction in the sets. We had cover sets. We had all of that shit. But and I wasn't looking for 40 takes of a scene either. It's like, all right, we got it. Are we happy? We're good. Moving on. Yeah. And our last day, we had something like 50 shots we had to get. But we fucking got them.
I hear you, man. Our last day was similar too. We went all day, 3 different locations. It was, it's like we're finishing this day. This is the day we're going to be done. We're not going another weekend. Everyone's tired. 5 months, we're done. We all want our free time back.
Yeah, but it was fun. I similarly got the advice from Kevin, who will always say, it's like, this should be a party. Like, a set should be the best place to be.
Right.
If we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong.
Right. Yes.
And so, like, he was like, yeah, I'm the host of a party. I'm the MC, and we've all come to show up and play fucking make pretend. And if we can't enjoy ourselves while doing that, then we picked the wrong line of business. And so trying to keep that sense of lightness and fun, and like, guys, we're making a fucking movie. Isn't this great?
Yes, absolutely. I remember the bloopers on like Inglorious Bastards where like, why are we doing this? Because we love making movies.
Yeah, but like even coming out of those 4 days of production, I was like, I don't know how people make like a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
That's a like 8 month long, like multiple continents, like you're killing yourself every fucking day as you're like piecing together some massive car chase or whatever it is. And like I just don't know how people have the energy for that.
I agree. It's like when Daniel Craig was like, I'm not doing this again, but he did another one. I feel the same
Right.
way after every movie. It's like, gosh, do I really want to make another one of these? And then I get another idea and I write it. I usually go through 3 or 4 scripts before I find the one that we're going to make.
Yeah. Like I do understand the siren's call. Like, come on, man, just one more. Just do one more.
Yes. Absolutely.
Fuck. All right, I'll do one.
Absolutely. Man, this has been a good conversation. Thank you very much.
No, man, it's my pleasure. It is my pleasure. It's always nice to get to talk to other storytellers, about both their stories and about sort of their craft and their hopes and their dreams, and then just shooting the shit with like-minded people.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Um, I'm a comic book collector,
Mhm.
right? And did I see your name on Push, like a comic for Push?
Yes, 1,000 years ago, Push, based on a movie with Chris Evans.
Yeah, yeah. I liked that movie. I know the rest of the world didn't really dig it, but I dug it.
Yeah, I barely remember it. Like I remember seeing it. They showed us a really rough cut of the movie before we signed on to write the comic book. Because the comic was a prequel to the movie.
Okay.
So they were like, "Yeah, all right, we'll show you whatever, like temp VFX, temp score, like it's not time, the color's shitty, all of it, but like we'll let you see it." So they invited us to some conference room in Beverly Hills to sit and watch this movie. And then we, Wildstorm at the time, it was Wildstorm, now it's DC, but Wildstorm was like, all right, so you guys want to do this? What's your idea? I'm like, fucking, all right, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a thing that just leads up to the beginning of this movie, and we'll do it about Johnny Hunsu's character. We'll be like, and they said, yeah, great, go ahead, go write it. Um, and it was fun in that the studio didn't care that much about what we did. Like even though it was a licensed book, they never got in the way. There was never any like list of shit you couldn't do. Unlike working for say Marvel, where there's like the laundry list of stuff you can't touch,
Right.
and they will tell you about. It's like, but what about? Nope, can't know. But wouldn't it be nice if did? Shut up. Nope. Stop asking. Never gonna tell you. Like, all right then.
Yeah, I did. I saw that, and it's like, oh, I know who that guy is. I first found out about you from the Dark Knight Returns commentaries that you guys did.
Mm. Yeah, those were fun. Those were fun. Every like 6 months, I do keep poking Kev, like, hey man, we should do the Dark Knight,
Yes, yes, and Dune.
and Dune. Yeah, but then every 6 months he's like, all right, we'll do it. And then he goes like, man, can we just push this like a week? And then that pushing of a week turns into like a month, which then turns into 6 months later. And we go, hey man, remember we were gonna do that? It's like, I know. But it's a time investment for a podcast that's unlike any other podcast he does. Right? Like he shows up to Fat Man and has no idea what the news is.
Right.
Yeah, like he literally like he'll drive up and be like, all right, we got news tonight. I'm like, yeah, we got news. It's like, okay, let's go do a show. And then we go do a show and he can be surprised or not or whatever. Same thing with Hollywood Babylon. Like Ralph's job is to assemble the run of the show. It's like, you're right.
Yeah.
But you do a commentary track where it's like, all right, you got to watch the movie, and then you got to stop as you go and take notes to talk about as you're
Yeah.
talking about the movie. Like suddenly, it becomes a 5 hour investment as opposed to I just drove up and did a podcast.
Right, and those movies just get longer and longer the more you
The
go.
movies get longer and longer, and I figured this out when I was doing the Battlestar podcast. That like, yeah, oh, sure, every episode of Battlestar is 43 minutes long, but it takes me 2 hours to watch it because I'm like writing down quotes and finding, and I'm making sure I've got little notes and whatever. And so for a movie like Dark Knight, it's twice as long.
Yes.
And he's always like, man, I don't know, the investment's so heavy. I'm like, yeah, but we should finish it though. Like we should at some point. Maybe we should the show drop a Dark Knight commentary track.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting on the edge of my seat for the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. And stupid internet connection.
Yeah, but that was like the beginning. That was the beginning of Kevin's being like, okay, we should do another one. I got this other Batman podcast. We should watch Gotham. And so we did commentaries. We're like, we don't like Gotham that much. Let's just do a podcast. Like, I don't know if I could do like 5 years of Gotham.
Right. You know, I still never have been able to kind of get into Gotham.
I think I watched the first season and then never watched anymore.
Yeah, same.
And then every now and again there would be a like, oh, we're introducing the Joker, so I would like tune into the season premiere where they're introducing the Joker, and they'd be like, it's not really the Joker. It's like, all right, fine.
Right.
You thought you got me, but no.
Right.
But yeah, man, that's what I got.
It's great. It's great. I had fun. You know, it's great that you actually read it. You've read? I'm assuming you've read everything that everyone has submitted that put in for this.
I have, and like some dudes are like, would you read my novel? And all right, listen, man, you paid your money. I said that I would, and so I will. But even like the novels, like if they're not firing, it's like I'll give it like 100 pages.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and the other problem is that my reading is atrophied to such a degree that it's become harder for me to read than ever. Like my adult onset ADD has just been like, this is crazy.
Yeah, cell phones have ruined me for reading, absolutely, 100%. Because I'll read something, and then my mind will be like, oh, let me look that up real quick. And next thing you know, I'm not reading anymore.
Yeah. So, like, I started doing the, like, because if you send a pilot script into Hollywood, they will read the first 15 to 20 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And they will say, all right, well, do I want to read any more? I can tell by these 20 pages if a person can write. And so if they can write, I'll read another 10 pages and see what the story is. And if I'm engaged in the story, then I'll read all of it. And I think that I started to keep that same metric where, like I said, I would read up to 100 pages. So if you send me a screenplay, I'll read the screenplay. But if you send me a novel, I will read the first third of your novel. I will read the first 100 pages of your novel.
Right.
And if it's not working in 100 pages, it's never going to be working. But I'll still give notes, and I'll still try and find a way to say a thing. But it's been a lot more reading than I'm used to. And I am sleepy earlier than I usually am.
I'll bet.
Sure.
Are you almost done with all these?
I think I have a handful more. I think there's like 2 more this week, and then 2 more the week after next. And then I think I'm done. I think we've tapped the keg.
Right. End of the journey, right around when you're getting ready to be done with the movie too.
I know it's almost as if we planned it that way.
Right.
What are you up to tonight? What are your big plans?
Well, I mean, I gotta finish Sandman. I got 1 episode left, and then it's just bed and work tomorrow.
Good for you, man.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, Matthew. I'm gonna leave you to it.
Thank you for everything.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And thank you again for all the support. Like, we could not have made this movie without folks like you. And so, the very least I can do is to read your stuff and give you some real feedback on it. So I'm glad you received it in the spirit that it was intended, and I hope that any of it helped. And as with all notes, take the ones you want, leave the ones you don't.
Sure.
This is your baby. I'm just an interloper who came and gave a couple of thoughts.
No, it was great. You remind me a lot of my drama teacher. I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
And that's up to you.
I loved my drama teacher. He's great. He's still around, but like you reminded me a lot of him. I had a lot of the same like attitude and notes, and it felt very much like that. So like I loved every minute of it, and yeah, thank you.
No, my pleasure, and I will take that as a compliment.
It definitely is. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, man. Have a good night.
You too. Take it easy. See you later.
Be good.